Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Mother's Day weekend almost. I am here with a really good friend. Her name is Masha Shukhman, and we know each other from just the big Russian community in Boston, but she actually has a very, very interesting story and background. And I would love for you, Masha, to introduce yourself and to tell us a little bit about um, how you came to Boston, where you hail from, how all of that transpired. It's just very, very fascinating. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am a little nervous. I haven't been doing much of live sessions. Um, but yes, talking about myself. Wow. So I am originally from Moscow, and I came to Canada with my parents when I was about 15, 16 years old, and stayed there for quite a long time because I found a job of my dreams, which was working for Cirque du Soleil. So the big,
Which is amazing. I mean, crazy. Tell us a little bit about what you did for Cirque du Soleil, because I find it so unusual and
yeah,
so intriguing.
yeah. What I like about the story, like to be honest, in my personal sort of identity, I think there's, um, I was always dreaming of doing something like that. I was always thinking, growing up, that what I want to do is to work with artists, maybe work in some type of, artistic environment. I did do acting, my education is in acting, but I never kind of could pinpoint what I exactly wanted to do. And then, arriving to Montreal, and at that time, Slava Palunin, who is a famous um,
Russian
clown,
circus, yeah.
and he worked for Cirque for a few years, and so I knew about him. I knew about Cirque du Soleil, um, and then a friend of mine actually um, invited me to come in and see the studio and work as an interpreter for like few sessions. And I got there and I was just so mesmerized. I really was mesmerized. I did not know that something like that exists, that something like that almost like can have this artistic form, can have this big building and so many people doing beautiful live entertainment. I was really super inspired, and eventually I applied to work for the casting department, uh, and I got the job. And what I was doing, right? So what I was doing is I worked in the team, in a small team of acting specialists. So, right? So working for Cirque du Soleil, but I didn't cast acrobats. I did not cast circus artists. I did not cast a little bit actually dancers and musicians because that's all happening live at Cirque du Soleil. But mostly really concentrated on looking for unique artistic talent, non-verbal theater, pantomime artist, clowning, all sorts of like mixed profiles. So let's say a director would want for his show, would envision like his main character to be like this Mediterranean guy who is a wonderful, experienced actor, and on top of that can juggle or can dislocate his body. So that's something that would get in my group's mission, to look for that type of unique guy around the globe.
Wow. Quite a challenge.
Yes, yeah, quite a challenge. And then he would get back to us and say, well, no, you know, doesn't really talk to me. Look for other people like this. You're like, well, he's like, there are just maybe few like people who can do that in the world. Yes, it was challenging, but super. I really have to say that I did work. It was really something that suited me completely. I really loved doing this. There was a lot of passion. There was a lot of interesting people that I got to meet. It was like a whole life that was happening. Yeah.
So the story that you told me, I think a few years back, that for some reason I keep coming back to in my mind every time I see Cirque du Soleil or think of Cirque du Soleil, was the story of how they were in the middle of this show that involved a lot of different characters, and some of those were very little characters, and then you had to search for proper accommodations. There was so much thinking that had to go into, well, where do they sleep, how do they eat, how tell us just a little bit more about all of those very varied characters that you had to cast for these shows, right?
Yeah. Well, there's this, my favorite show, Cirque du Soleil show, is Corteo. And
I
Diane,
love that
you're
one.
right. I probably talked a lot about Corteo. I think it's one of the most theatrical shows that Cirque du Soleil have done. And that show had very special characters, a lot of very special characters. So there was a giant, for example, a giant man. There were small people, so that were part of the show. Really tiny, small people, yeah. And there was a whistler, right? Somebody who whistles. And so a lot of profiles, a lot of artistic profiles that we were casting, that my little group of acting specialists were casting. And yeah, I mean, the story with this, with small people was, we had to find a couple of, small people experienced in theater, so actors, firstly, and also director wanted them to come out with their own number. So that means they had to have some acting experience, plus have some circus number to present. So a lot of challenges we were looking at. It took some years to find, maybe an extended period of time to find those people. And yes, talking about, so Corteo is a touring production. So they're going to live in the hotels, they're going to eat in the restaurants or on site, but all that had to be specifically created for to accommodate those, let's say, small people in that case, their beds, the hotel rooms, right? So all that um, was a very special experience. Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the whole sort of the logistical side of how they actually, like, what was it like for them on tour. I haven't participated much, but heard a lot from them, and they became a really good friends, and so sweet, like really sweet people. Yeah, I really wish Corteo would come back to life.
It sounds incredible. And I think it really ties in with what you're doing now in a way, because some of those projects that you're going to talk about a little later, I think, do talk about this aspect of truly catering to every single person and really seeing them for who they are. I know there's a really exciting photo shoot project that you are putting, that you've been working on, and just sounds absolutely amazing. So I can't wait to hear about that. And I definitely think that there is, one thing always leads to another. And I really think that this story of working for Corteo has a lot to do with where you are right now. So fast forwarding to this horrible year that we've had, right?
Yeah.
What was it like for you? What changed? How did you go through it? What insights have you had? Would really love to kind of see what that whole experience brought you into.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a super good question. I think I especially really see a lot of struggle that happened during that year. And I remember at some point in like maybe April or May of last year, driving on Beacon Street in Boston and looking outside the window and thinking like, oh my God, like you see this sadness all around. You're seeing people with masks. You're seeing people sort of like, you don't actually see people interacting with each other. Like you see just like single people like walking down the streets, the street that used to be filled with joy and laughter and like life. And I remember feeling just horrible, so sad and so depleted. And I think that's when I got the idea really sort of pumped into my mind, the idea of doing the fitness circle, because I felt that, well, first of all, that would bring us outside, and was spring. I mean, my God, we all waited for that spring to come for months. And now
Wow.
it's there, and you just see people with masks, and nobody can really interact with each other. Anyway, so I felt like I should really get people out in the park. We're going to be on a distance. It's all going to be safe. We're going to wear masks, and we're going to do some exercise. And I've been doing a lot of like fitness work throughout my life. Working for Cirque, I did a lot of like physical activities. I did a lot of dancing. Um, and coming here, I did like 3 years of bar studio, and I was always like interested in like Pilates and yoga. So I've been involved in all this for so many years that I felt like I really had an idea to design my own fitness program where I would combine. I really wanted to sort of give that, maybe like that integral type of support to my participants, where we're gonna not just do fitness, we're actually gonna do more than this. It's gonna be more about our mental and our moral, mental state that
Like
will bring
mind,
out my yes my
the mind-body connection.
mind body connection that would bring the piece of physical well-being, wellness, right? So I built this program. I sort of custom designed this program that it has a breathing part that is sort of that mental preparation for the physical activity that's going to follow. We do stretching that is more for the physical prep, right? To like prep your body to warm up. And then I do this intense muscle work, so full body intense muscle work that to me is also a lot about this kind of being engaged and being involved and being active, that brings you like from the out. You really, I think there's a lot of like force and strength that builds up when we do an intensive type of fitness work, and then we end up with like breathing and stretching and um yeah. So that's
There's a lot. I mean, I just find that it is so inspiring and so incredible that that idea came to you in the most horrible months of COVID, right? When everybody was really cocooning themselves, and we really should have been outside and should have been enjoying the fact that the world still lives on. And I know that a lot of this was just you volunteering to do it at first, right? That's how it started, just saying, hey, people, let's come out, let's exercise, let's truly be present here with me and in your bodies, and appreciate the fact that we're healthy and we're alive and there's a lot to look forward to, and spring is here, right?
yeah.
So I just think that it's just so life affirming what you did last spring, and
Well, thank
just
you.
incredible. Yeah. And kudos to you for continuing with it and for doing it. And I know I wanted to bring it to the photo project because I really think that is something very, very special. And once again, it is something that honors women who oftentimes take last place in their family dynamics and in what they allow, what they give themselves permission to do. So tell us a little bit more about this amazing photo project that you've been involved with.
Yeah. Yeah. So that came about, I'd say about maybe almost a year ago, that I partnered with a friend of mine. Well, she called me and we decided to sort of like partner on this project together. And she is a photographer, a really wonderful, achieved photographer.
In New York, right? You said?
Based in New York, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And what we came up with is that we wanted to give women that chance to express their authentic side, express their sensuality, sexuality, femininity. Like we really, both of us felt like, and especially, coming back to that horrible year that we had, I think there's that component of doing something for yourself. It's doing something to make you feel good, have pleasure with, have fun with, whatever it is for you. So I talk to every client and tell them that, it's not a modeling gig, right? You're not modeling for anyone. You're not doing it for anyone. No one is there to judge. It's your stage. You're there to shine, to do what makes you feel good, to wear what makes you feel beautiful. Whatever it is that will make that internal you come out and thrive. That's what we're going to do. Whether it is, so there is that component of experience, just experiencing that type of a photo shoot where you are on the spotlight, you are the star of your show, where we do your makeup and hair, we treat you to a special consultation where, we talk about how to relax, we talk about how to pose, we talk about how to dress, we talk about conceptualizing your moment, your session. And then there's a photographer who's there to capture it, to capture your special moment, you being the most authentic, natural, beautiful you. So that's sort of the concept about this. Yeah, and I truly feel very compassionate with that mission. I think there is like a big sort of psychological, mental component to this as well, because we don't do much for ourselves these days. And being a woman, I'd say especially in our today's world, is also a very vague and unclear being, state of being. And how often do we get to express our feminine side, and where do we do that, and when? We have kids, we have all these projects that we're doing, life that takes over. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of goodness in that.
Yeah, I have to say that it is such a life-changing event to be doing photo shoots. And I have done 3 so far. And the first one I did last January, and I was so nervous because, yeah, you are the star of the show. It's not comfortable being the star of the show. We're not used to that, and to feeling so. There's a certain level of love and respect that you have to have for yourself to step out and do that, to honor the fact that you need makeup and that you need to do hair. So the first time that I did this, I thought, well, I can just do my own makeup. Everybody knows how to do makeup. And I thought, well, surely nobody's going to do my hair because I can figure this out on my own. And the photos were okay. The photos were great. But then, and I was part of this program where the photo shoots were actually, I was part of a mastermind where photo shoots were required because we wanted to see the difference every 6 months in terms of what happens to your inner mental state over the course of growing yourself and really taking the time to understand how valuable it is to honor yourself. So 6 months later, the photographer that I was using convinced me that I need to use a makeup artist. And it was such a struggle for me. It was a minor expense if you really think about it, but to really think about spending money on just one photo shoot, right? And additional money on doing the makeup for that photo shoot. To me, it was such a huge leap of faith and leap of respect for myself. But the photos were 1,000 times better. Yeah. And then I just did another one about a month or two ago. And I went all out. I said, okay, there's going to be a hair artist and a makeup artist. And I'm going to sit there. And on one side, I had the hair girl doing the hair. And on another side, I had the makeup artist doing the makeup. And it is so awkward. But you come out of the experience being a completely different person because you spent all that time on yourself and you gave yourself that experience of truly appreciating yourself for your beauty and for what you have to say to the world. And it is so essential to be doing things like that, especially now when we are truly going to be going through the effects of isolation and COVID living for quite some time. And I just really wanted to bring this up specifically for Mother's Day because there is that stigma about self-care and this push, like this cultural push towards being selfless and being the last in line. And it's not okay.
It's not okay. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a total misconception about the whole idea of being selfish when you're actually doing something for yourself. And especially as a mother and as a woman, and especially from a certain cultural background, we do carry this on with us that, like what's in there, looking beautiful or having pictures taken. Pictures taken is already like a selfish act of, look at myself, and artistic sort of that aura that we, that some people perceive through doing something that actually has such a potential to bring you to another level of just experiencing yourself, experiencing pleasure of feeling good, experiencing then an eventual pleasure of looking at your pictures. And just maybe to add a little bit, for the Mother's Day theme, I think, it's also for your kids. I mean, for your kids to see mom looking beautiful, maybe having like a wall, framed wall art piece on your wall in your house is such a great image. It's such a great message, for the kids that look, well, that's mom, and that's mom feeling good and feeling beautiful and feeling comfortable within her body. I mean, really is a powerful message. And, we are, so we're doing it for women, and the way we sort of pivot, like the artistic and the conceptual side of things, is that we are going more into sort of like that boudoir type of shoot, because there's something, and that's also, there's a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes about like doing something like this, but in reality, when you look at the beautiful boudoir pictures, there's something extremely personal and extremely tender and extremely pleasing, and very authentic. Like there's a beauty photography, which is wonderful, but it's a different thing. There's something about boudoir that lets us sort of pierce through more of a woman's personality. And it really doesn't need to be revealing. It doesn't need to be anything uncomfortable. It can be very sensual, very beautiful, very tender, very artistic. There's a lot of artistic component that is like fun to play with when you're doing actually a boudoir shoot.
That's beautiful. So balancing it all, right? We talked about being mothers. How do you go about it? How do you find time to be present for your son, be involved with all of these amazing initiatives? What do you do?
Yeah. Well,
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one. Yeah, I think, and I just have one 7-year-old. But especially lately, especially with the year that happened to us and all this struggle that I'm witnessing around me, I truly believe that, for my son to see me in a great mood, in a good state of mind, and relaxed and happy and joyful, is extremely important. Like I hope it doesn't sound like cliche or something that's like being said a lot, but I mean, it's especially important these days, and I see that in my family. I've spent a lot of time just being home, just being with my son, just being a mother. And now it's time that I do for my son something else. I actually become someone else. I actually do something that makes me feel good. And that's almost something that I wish and I hope and I notice and I witness that makes my son also feel good. And his mood changes. And he sees me being involved and being active and going through hard times. Yes, that happens. And that's part of my life. But getting out of it with that type of stimuli of doing things that makes me feel good and makes me feel realized as a mother. Yeah.
That's so beautiful and so powerful, because there's always that mother's guilt about stepping out and, doing something that you need to be doing during family dinner, or doing something for you on the weekend, right? Or working late because, you have to work late. And it's really tough to get out of that mother's guilt and to really flip that on its side and think about it the way that you just described, in terms of, I'm giving them a role model. I'm a role model of what their life can be if they respect themselves enough to go after their dreams, and if they want to make an impact on this world. And leading by example is the best way to show them how to be. And I absolutely agree with that. And just think that it's amazing that that's exactly what you're doing. So kudos to you. So I know there's a lot happening. So the workout sessions are still continuing, right? I would love to join one. So tell us a little bit about where they happen, how often, how to sign up, and also for the photo shoot project, how do people find out more about it, where to go to see some examples, to potentially book a session, all of that stuff.
Yeah, thank you. So I am in the process actually of putting together like a sort of a better fitting schedule. At this point, we have regular sessions on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays outside in the park. It's a little square for those of us who live in Brookline, in Boston. It's right across from Rose Garden, on Sun on Sun Pole Street. Anyway, like a little square that is really cute and very green, and doesn't, very like very quiet. So maybe I can comment. Maybe I can put a
Yeah,
comment
yeah, you can put it in the comments. Yeah.
with like a link to sign up for the sessions. And you can always just contact me directly, and I'd love to get you involved.
Yeah, thank you. I would love to come. Absolutely. And the photo sessions, I know you mentioned there's a Facebook group. Is there a website, or how do people find out about that?
Yeah, so our company is called Portrait with Flair. So portraitwithflair.com would give you access to the website. And there is a group on Facebook that is very active. We've been keeping it active for the past like few months, especially doing different lives, doing different sort of like promotional announcements, and just leading a fun female discussion about different things. So that group is called Portrait with Flair for Women Who Dare. So
Oh,
right.
lovely. And definitely put that in the comments too. I
I
love
will
the
put that in
title.
the comments, and please join. There are a lot of plans ahead to do like also some fun live sessions, and we are offering also like different sort of deals for the photo session. So at this point, it's more directed towards New York, because that's where our main studio is. But I'm hoping we can also do something like that in Boston, maybe do like more of like sort of like a punctual action. Anyway, so things are in plans.
Nice, nice, excellent. All right. Well, I think we're past our usual mark, but this has been great. We can go on forever, I'm sure, about all things self-love and self-respect, and
Mother-
coming out into the world and really feeling like yourself and being proud of what everybody's unique gifts that they have to offer, right? But I would love to wish you happy Mother's Day. And I think this was just a perfect Mother's Day edition, to just think back to who we are truly, aside from being mothers and wives and workers, and just getting back to the core and
Yeah.
feeling what's important. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for getting everybody's spirits up with exercise routines and that mind-body connection. And it's been lovely having you. So
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much, Diane. I'm really honored to have that live session with you. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
inviting me. Very
Thanks for
personal.
coming.
Yeah.
All right. Happy weekend.
Happy Mother's Day.
Bye.